She was 6 months pregnant, holding a glass of sparkling cider and watching her CEO husband charm his mistress. It was the annual Legacy Gala at the Plaza Hotel, the most exclusive event in New York. But in 1 second, her world shattered. The mistress, with a viper's smile, didn't just trip her, she kicked her. As the pregnant wife fell, the entire room froze. She looked to her husband for help, but he just laughed. A cold, cruel laugh. He laughed until a single voice, booming with the power of billions, silenced the room. Enough! The chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom didn't so much light the room as drip liquid gold onto the people below. It was the annual Legacy Gala, a night where New York's old money and new tech titans mingled, their forced smiles as brittle as the diamond-crusted tiaras on display. Sakura Thorne felt like a fraud. She stood near a towering ice sculpture of a swan, one hand resting protectively on the gentle, firm curve of her 6-month pregnancy. Her dress, a custom-made silk in deep sapphire, was elegant but modest, a stark contrast to the glittering, near-naked ambition shimmering on the bodies of the other wives. Her husband, Marcus Thorne, CEO of Thorne Industries, had not glanced her way in over an hour. Marcus was a man carved from polished ice, handsome, devastatingly charismatic in the boardroom, and utterly frigid in their 10-bedroom Park Avenue penthouse. Sakura, the daughter of a quiet, scholarly family, had been swept away by his power. She had mistaken his intensity for passion, his control for stability. Now, she was just another one of his assets, like his high-rise office, or his matte black sports car. The baby was supposed to be a bridge, a way to span the icy chasm that had opened between them. But as Marcus's gaze lingered on her, Sakura knew the bridge was already collapsing. Her name was Chloe Sterling. Chloe was Marcus's new Senior Vice President of Acquisitions, a title as transparent as the sheer, blood-red fabric of her gown. She was all sharp angles, sharp cheekbones, sharp wit, and stilettos that looked like weapons. She was currently holding court by the string quartet, Marcus at her side, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. He had introduced Sakura to her 3 months ago, his eyes daring Sakura to challenge him. Sakura, trapped and terrified of his cold rages, had said nothing. "He's not even subtle about it," a voice purred. Sakura turned to see Beatrice Vanderbilt, a society doyenne whose blood was so blue it was practically indigo. "My dear Sakura," Beatrice continued, sipping her champagne, "you really must learn to accessorize. A pregnant belly is lovely, but a backbone is essential." Sakura flushed, murmuring something non-committal. She hated this. She hated the whispers, the pitying looks, the feeling of being a ghost at her own husband's side. She felt a wave of dizziness and clutched her stomach. The baby kicked, a small, reassuring thump. "Just get through the night, baby. Just a few more hours." She decided to get some air, making her way toward the terrace. As she passed the main champagne fountain, she saw a figure watching her. Not with pity, but with a strange, penetrating intensity. It was Arthur Vance. The man was a legend. While others in the room shouted their wealth, Arthur Vance whispered his. He was old money, a true titan of industry from an era before tech bros and influencers. He ran half of Wall Street from a quiet, wood-paneled office and was notoriously private. He rarely attended these events. Tonight, he sat alone at a corner table, his tuxedo immaculate, his white hair thick. He looked less like a guest and more like a king observing a court of jesters. As Sakura passed, he met her gaze. He didn't smile. He simply nodded, a gesture of acknowledgement so profound it startled her. It was the first time anyone had truly seen her all night. She gave a small, nervous nod back and continued toward the terrace doors. She didn't see Chloe detach herself from Marcus's side. Her eyes narrowed. Her red-painted lips curved into a sneer. Sakura was just 3 steps from the terrace door when Chloe's voice sliced through the din of the quartet. "Well, well, if it isn't the guest of honor." Sakura stopped, her hand tightening on her stomach. She turned. Chloe was standing in her path, blocking her exit. "Excuse me, Chloe. I was just getting some air." Sakura's voice was polite, but it shook. "Air? You look like you're about to pop, darling. Maybe you should be at home, knitting. This is a party for people who matter." Chloe's eyes raked over Sakura's sapphire dress with contempt. "Though I suppose you are performing a valuable service. You're the incubator for the Thorn heir. It's the only job you've managed to keep." The music seemed to fade. The people nearby, sensing the vinegar in the air, quieted. A small, silent circle formed. Sakura could see Marcus across the room, watching them. He was smiling. He was enjoying this. "Please let me pass, Chloe," Sakura said, her voice dropping, her fear being replaced by a low, protective anger. "You're drunk." "I'm honest," Chloe hissed, stepping closer. The smell of gin and expensive perfume washed over Sakura, making her nauseous. "He doesn't love you. He doesn't even like you. You're just the wallpaper. And you're both beige." Sakura tried to step around her. "I'm not doing this with you." "Oh, yes, you are," Chloe snarled. And then it happened. It wasn't a stumble. It wasn't an accident. Chloe, with calculated malice, lifted her leg. The stiletto heel of her shoe, sharp as a nail, connected with Sakura's ankle, but her leg followed through, kicking Sakura squarely in the shin and hip, deliberately aiming for her center of gravity. Sakura cried out, a sharp, terrified gasp. The kick, combined with her pregnancy-altered balance, sent her reeling. She twisted, her arms flailing, trying desperately to protect her stomach. She crashed sideways, landing hard on her hip and elbow on the unforgiving marble floor. The ballroom went utterly silent. The only sound was Sakura's ragged, painful breathing. She lay there, stunned, pain shooting up her hip, but a greater, colder fear seized her. The baby. Was the baby okay? She cradled her belly, tears welling in her eyes, her body shaking from shock. She looked up, her gaze finding Marcus instantly. He was her husband. He would help her. But Marcus Thorn didn't move. He stood frozen, his eyes wide. Then the corners of his mouth twitched. He looked at his business rivals, the Donnellys, who were watching in horror. He gave a small, dismissive shrug, and then he laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh. It was a low, cold chuckle, a sound of pure, unadulterated contempt. "Clumsy, darling," he called out, his voice carrying across the silent room. "You really must watch where you're going. All that baby weight, I suppose." Chloe stood over Sakura, her arms crossed, a look of absolute triumph on her face. She looked like a predator admiring her kill. Sakura's heart didn't just break, it atomized. The humiliation was a physical force, pressing her into the cold floor. The man she'd married, the father of her child, was laughing as his mistress stood over her, having just assaulted her. She closed her eyes, the tears now streaming, wishing the floor would swallow her whole. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. No one moved. No one dared. Then a new sound, the scrape of a heavy chair on marble, the heavy, measured thud of expensive leather shoes walking with purpose. A voice, deep and resonant with decades of undisputed power, ripped through the ballroom. It wasn't a shout, it was a command. "Enough!" The word echoed off the gilded ceiling like a thunderclap. Every head snapped toward the corner table. Arthur Vance was on his feet. His face, usually a mask of patrician calm, was a mask of thunderous, terrifying rage. His blue eyes, normally pale, burned with an icy fire. Chloe's triumphant smirk vanished, replaced by a pale, confused frown. Marcus's laugh died in his throat, his face freezing in a grotesque mask of shock. Arthur Vance strode forward. The crowd didn't just part for him, they recoiled, as if from a physical force. He didn't stop until he was standing directly over Chloe, his 6'2" frame casting a shadow over her. He didn't look at her. He looked down at Sakura, still on the floor. His expression, so full of fury a moment before, instantly softened into one of profound concern. "My dear child," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. He knelt, a slow, painful process for a man his age, and extended a large, steady hand. "Are you hurt? The baby?" Sakura, trembling, could only sob and shake her head, her hand still protectively on her stomach. I think we're okay. Let's get you up." He helped her to her feet, his strength surprising. He kept a steadying arm around her as she swayed. Only when she was stable did he turn his attention to the others. He looked first at Chloe. His voice was so low, so cold, it was more chilling than his shout. "You are a creature of profound ugliness," he said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. To strike a woman is cowardly. To strike a pregnant woman is a sacrilege. You are dismissed, not just from this party, from this city. If I ever see your face at an event in New York again, I will personally see to it that the only acquisitions you're involved in are from a discount bin." Chloe opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She was paper white, terrified. Then Arthur turned his gaze on Marcus. The full, unbridled fury of $1 billion empire descended upon the CEO. "And you." Marcus, trying to regain his composure, straightened his tie. "Mr. Vance. Arthur. This is a private family matter. My wife she's very emotional." Arthur took one step closer, invading Marcus's personal space. Marcus instinctively recoiled. "She is emotional." Arthur's voice was barely a whisper, but everyone heard it. "She was assaulted by your whore. She fell to the floor, pregnant with your child. And you laughed." He let the words hang in the air, a public indictment. "Have you no shame, boy?" Arthur continued. "Have you no decency? No soul? You stand here in a room full of people whose fortunes were built on legacy, and you desecrate the very idea of it. You are not a man. You are a disgrace." Marcus was beet red. His investors, his rivals, his entire world, all were watching him be dressed down like a misbehaving schoolboy. "Now see here," Marcus stammered. "You have no right." "I have every right," Arthur cut him off. He turned to his own personal security guard, a large man named Thomas, who had materialized at his side. "Thomas, get my car. We are taking Mrs. Thorne to Lenox Hill Hospital. I want her and her child to have the best suite and a full obstetric workup. Now." "Yes, Mr. Vance." Thomas was already on his radio. Arthur put his arm back around Sakura's shoulders. "Come, my dear. You are safe now." He began to walk her toward the exit. Marcus, seeing his wife, his asset, being led away by the most powerful man in the room, finally found his voice. "Sakura, you will not leave this gala. You will not embarrass me like this. Sakura, I am your husband," he shouted, starting after them. Arthur stopped. He turned, his body shielding Sakura. "You will stay where you are, Mr. Thorne," Arthur commanded. "You will not follow us. You will not call her. If you so much as breathe in her direction before she is cleared by a doctor, I will mobilize my entire legal team. I will bury your company in lawsuits and audits before sunrise. Am I understood? Marcus Thorne, the shark of Wall Street, the man who terrified his board and employees, stood frozen, impotent. He stared at Arthur Vance, his face a mask of primal hatred. Arthur held his gaze for a long, silent beat. Then he turned his back on Marcus, the ultimate insult, and gently guided Sakura out of the grand ballroom, leaving behind a ruined party and a shattered CEO. The private suite at Lenox Hill Hospital was larger than Sakura's first apartment. It was quiet, save for the soft, rhythmic thump-thump-thump of the fetal heart monitor. "Well, Mrs. Thorne," said Dr. Ramirez, a kind woman with warm eyes, "you have one very active, very healthy baby in there, and one very lucky mother. Your hip will be bruised, but there is no serious damage to you or the fetus. You were smart to curl as you fell." Sakura let out a breath she felt she'd been holding since she hit the floor. "Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much." When the doctor left, Arthur Vance, who had been waiting in the suite's adjoining sitting room, entered quietly. He had a cup of tea in his hand. "They said you could have some chamomile," he said, handing it to her. Sakura's hands were still shaking as she took it. "Mr. Vance, I don't know how to thank you. You saved me. You saved us. But I don't understand why. You barely know me." Arthur sat in the chair by her bed. The harsh anger from the gala was gone, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. He looked at her, really looked at her, and his eyes were filled with a recognition that confused her. "No, Sakura," he said softly. "I don't know you well, but I knew your mother." Sakura froze, the teacup halfway to her lips. My mother? My mother passed away when I was 12. Her name was Serafina." "I know," Arthur said, his voice thick with emotion. "Serafina Gable. She was the most wonderful woman I ever knew, and she was the love of my life." Sakura could only stare, dumbfounded. "We met in the summer of 1975, Arthur continued, a distant, fond look in his eyes. "I was a young man on Wall Street, all ambition and cheap suits. She was radiant. She was volunteering at the library. We fell impossibly in love. We were going to get married." What happened?" Sakura whispered. Arthur's face darkened. "Her family, the Gables, they were old money, like the Vanderbilts you saw tonight. They looked at me and saw nothing, a nobody, a striver. They told her I was beneath her, that I would only bring her shame. They pressured her, threatened to disown her. In the end, she chose them. She broke off our engagement, and, a year later, she married your father, William. A good, stable, approved man. Sakura's father, a kind, quiet classics professor. She had always wondered about her parents' marriage. It was respectful, but it had lacked the fire she read about in books. I never blamed her, Arthur said. But it broke me. I threw myself into my work. I built my empire. I made so much money that my name now makes the Gables and the Vanderbilts look like new money. But I never married. I could never replace her. He looked at Sakura, his eyes shining. I watched from a distance. I saw when you were born. I saw when she passed. I always kept a quiet eye on you, her daughter. I saw you grow up, so much like her. And then I saw you marry Marcus Thorne. His hands clenched. I knew what he was. I saw the same coldness, the same ambition that values money and power over people, the same cruelty that your mother's family had. I saw you at events, looking so sad, so isolated. I saw Serafina all over again, trapped in a gilded cage. "Tonight," he said, his voice dropping to a growl, "when I saw that filth kick you, and I saw him laugh, all the restraint I have practiced for 40 years, it just snapped. I failed your mother, Sakura. I was too weak, too poor to fight for her. I will not fail her daughter. I will not let that monster destroy you and her grandchild." Sakura was weeping, but for the first time, they weren't tears of fear or humiliation. They were tears of a profound, shattering relief. All her life, she had felt a strange, unnamed loneliness, especially after her mother died. Now, here was this powerful man, this stranger, who looked at her and saw not the CEO's wife, but Serafina's daughter. He won't let me go," Sakura whispered, the fear returning. "Marcus doesn't lose. He'll take the baby. He'll ruin me. He'll say I'm unstable, that I fell." Arthur placed his large hand over hers. It was warm and solid. "Yes, he will try," Arthur said, his eyes hardening. "But he is playing a game he cannot win. He thinks he's a shark, but he's a minnow in a tank. I am the ocean. You are not alone anymore, Sakura. We are going to fight, and we are going to dismantle him, piece by piece." The next 48 hours were a blur. Arthur moved Sakura out of the hospital and into a stunning, fortress-like guest house on his private estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. The estate was self-contained, with its own security, staff, and a level of privacy Marcus could never penetrate. The story of the Gala of Shame, as the tabloids dubbed it, was everywhere. CEO laughs as pregnant wife kicked by mistress. Marcus Thorne, sociopath or just CEO. Thorne Industries stock, TURN, dipped 12%. Marcus was in full damage control mode. He released a statement. "My wife's unfortunate and clumsy fall at the Gala, compounded by her hormonal state, has been grossly sensationalized by opportunistic parties. Our family asks for privacy as we deal with this challenging time." He also announced, in a transparent token gesture, that Chloe Sterling's contract had been terminated. In the oak-paneled library of Arthur's estate, the war room was assembled. Sakura sat at one end of a massive 19th-century table. Arthur sat at the other. Between them was Julian Adler, the most feared and most expensive divorce and corporate malfeasance attorney in New York. He was sharp, impossibly well-dressed, and had eyes that seemed to X-ray everything. "Here's the situation," Julian said, tapping his tablet. "Marcus is predictable. He's already filed a motion to have you compelled to return to the marital home. His narrative is set. You are pregnant, hysterical, and have been unduly influenced by a business rival." "A rival?" Sakura asked. "Me," Arthur said calmly. "Thorne Industries has been trying to force a merger with one of my subsidiaries for years. He will paint this as a corporate kidnapping, and you as a pawn. It's a strong narrative," Julian admitted, "and he will file for sole custody the second your child is born, claiming postpartum mental instability. He'll use the Gala fall as Exhibit A." Sakura's blood ran cold. "He would do that." "He will do that," Julian corrected. "Marcus doesn't just want to win, he wants to annihilate. A simple divorce won't be enough. He'll leave you with nothing. He will use his full financial weight to bury you in court until you have no money left to fight, and then he will take your child. So we cannot fight him on his terms." "What do we do?" Sakura asked, her voice small. "We don't fight him over the marriage. We fight him over his money," Julian said, a predatory glint in his eye. "A man like Marcus has two weaknesses, his ego and his wallet. Arthur's actions at the Gala dealt a critical blow to his ego. Now, we go for the wallet." "His company?" Arthur asked. "Exactly," Julian said. He's leveraged to the hilt. He's been using the company as his personal piggy bank. He paid for Chloe's penthouse, her car, her jewelry, all disguised as consulting fees or corporate expenses. That's a start. It's a morals charge we can use in the divorce, but more importantly, it's a breach of his fiduciary duty to his shareholders. But it's not enough to ruin him. We need something bigger. Something existential. Sakura, who had been listening silently, suddenly sat forward. I think I might have something, she said. Both men looked at her. Marcus is secretive, obsessive. He has a second set of books, not for the company, for his personal projects. He calls it Project Nightingale. He thinks I don't know about it. He doesn't keep it in his home office, and he doesn't keep it at his corporate office. Where does he keep it? Julian asked, leaning in. At his tailor's, Sakura said. A private, bespoke men's club called Brioni in Midtown. He has a private fitting room, room 7. There's a hidden safe behind a framed print of the Duke of Windsor. I saw him access it once, months ago. He thought I was just browsing the fabric swatches. Julian Adler looked at Arthur Vance. A slow, wolfish grin spread across his face. Project Nightingale, Julian mused. How very poetic. Thomas, Arthur said, speaking into his phone's intercom, get the acquisitions team ready. We're going to make a withdrawal. Getting into the safe was not a smash and grab. Arthur Vance didn't operate that way. He owned the holding company that owned the building Brioni leased. A fire inspection of the entire building was called at 3 a.m., while the inspectors, flown in from Chicago, with no connection to New York, checked the sprinklers on the main floor. Arthur's acquisitions team, 2 men who looked more like accountants than covert operatives, entered room 7. They were in and out in 4 minutes. They didn't take the ledgers. They digitally copied every single page. By 5 a.m., the files were encrypted and on Julian Adler's tablet. He, Arthur, and Sakura met in the library as the sun began to rise over the Greenwich estate. Julian's face was pale. I've been doing this for 30 years, and this is next-level sociopathy. What is it? Sakura said, her heart pounding. Project Nightingale isn't one project, Sakura, Julian said, turning the tablet to face her. It's you. He showed her the pages. It was a labyrinth of shell companies, offshore accounts, and wire transfers. It took Julian an hour to unravel it. But the conclusion was horrifying. Your father, William, didn't just leave you a small inheritance, Julian explained. He left you a trust, a substantial one. Over $30 million, which you were to inherit, free and clear on your 30th birthday, or upon the birth of your first child. My 30th birthday is in 2 months, Sakura whispered. And the baby? Exactly. Marcus knew this. He married you for it. This whole time, he has been systematically siphoning money from your trust, using a fraudulent power of attorney document he had you sign when you signed your prenup. He told you it was standard, but it gave him total control. Sakura felt sick. He's been stealing from me. Stealing is too small a word, my dear, Arthur said, his voice grim as he read over Julian's shoulder. He's been gutting you. He's funneled nearly 20 million of your money into his company, Thorn Industries, to cover massive trading losses he's been hiding from the board. He's been using your inheritance to prop up his failing business. And to pay Chloe, Julian added, pointing to a line item. A consulting fee of $2 million paid to an LLC in the Caymans. The LLC is owned by one Chloe Sterling. He was paying his mistress with your inheritance. Sakura put her head in her hands, a low moan escaping her lips. It was all a lie, the entire marriage. But it gets worse, Julian said, his voice hardening. This is the Nightingale part. Look at this." He pointed to a final set of entries. They were payments, scheduled for the week after her due date. Payments to a private psychiatric facility in upstate New York, and to a Dr. Alistair Finch. "We ran a check on Dr. Finch," Julian said. "He lost his license in 3 states. He specializes in expert testimony for a price." Sakura looked up, her eyes wide with uncomprehending horror. What does this mean?" "It means," Arthur said, his voice shaking with rage, "that his plan was never just to divorce you. His plan was to let you have the baby. Then he would use Dr. Finch to have you declared mentally unstable, postpartum psychosis. He'd use the Gala fall and your hysteria as proof. He was going to have you institutionalized, Sakura, indefinitely." Sakura's breath hitched. That way, Julian concluded, he would have sole, uncontested custody of the child, and, as your legal guardian, total and permanent control of the remaining $10 million in your trust. He wasn't just divorcing you, he was going to erase you. The kick at the Gala, his laugh, it all clicked into place with sickening clarity. He wasn't just amused by her humiliation. He was pleased. It was playing right into his script. Chloe's public assault was a gift to him, providing the public proof he needed that his wife was unstable. Sakura was silent for a full minute. The 2 men watched her. They expected tears. They expected a breakdown. Instead, Sakura Thorne lifted her head. The terror was gone. The sadness was gone. Her eyes, so like her mother's, were now as hard and cold as the marble floor she had fallen on. "Mr. Adler," she said, her voice devoid of any tremor. "You said we needed to hit his wallet and his ego." "Yes," Julian said. "That's not enough," Sakura said. "I don't want his company. I don't want his money. I want him in prison. And I want to be the one to put him there. I want to dismantle him." Arthur Vance looked at the woman before him. The timid girl was gone. In her place sat Seraphina's daughter, a queen. "Julian," Arthur said, a slow, proud smile spreading across his face. "Cancel the divorce proceedings. Call the SEC, call the district attorney's office, and book the largest conference room you can find. It's time for the Thorne Industries shareholders to meet the real Mrs. Thorne." The Thorne Industries annual shareholders meeting was held in a massive, sterile auditorium at the New York Hilton. The mood was already tense. The stock was in free fall, and the Gala of Shame story was refusing to die. Marcus Thorne stood on the stage, a picture of corporate polish. His suit was perfect, his hair was perfect, his smile was practiced. He was in the middle of a damage control speech. "And I want to assure our investors that the scurrilous rumors circulating in the press are just that. Rumors. My family is strong, our company is strong, and our third-quarter projections are—" The heavy oak doors at the back of the auditorium slammed open. Every head turned. Sakura Thorne walked in. She was not the trembling, sapphire-clad victim from the Gala. She was dressed in a razor-sharp, custom-tailored black pantsuit that accommodated her pregnancy with an air of pure power. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. On one side of her was Arthur Vance, looking like a lion guarding his pride. On the other was Julian Adler, carrying a thick briefcase. They were flanked by 2 of Arthur's security team and 2 uniformed NYPD officers. Marcus stopped mid-sentence, his blood drained from his face. "Sakura, what is the meaning of this? This is a private meeting. Security, remove these people." "They're with me." The voice came from the front row. A woman stood up. It was Eleanor Hayes, the largest single shareholder on the board. I believe Mrs. Thorne has a presentation she'd like to make regarding the company's creative accounting, Eleanor said, her voice dripping ice. Julian Adler had, of course, given the board a preview an hour earlier. "This is an outrage," Marcus sputtered. "You're damned right it is," Sakura said. Her voice, amplified by the microphone Julian handed her, was strong and clear. She began walking down the central aisle, her heels clicking like a metronome of doom. "Good morning, everyone," Sakura said, addressing the shocked shareholders. "My name is Sakura Thorne. My husband was just talking about strong projections. I'm here to talk about Project Nightingale." On the massive screen behind Marcus, where his Q3 projections had been, a new image appeared, the first page of the secret ledger. "My husband, the CEO you've entrusted with your money, has been busy," Sakura continued, her voice ringing with cold fury. "He's been covering millions in trading losses by embezzling. Specifically, by embezzling over $20 million from my private trust fund." Gasps erupted. The press, whom Julian had invited, began flashing photos. "He used this stolen money, my money, to illegally inflate this company's value," Sakura said, as Julian's team began handing out packets of the evidence to the board. "And where did the rest go? Well, $2 million went to his mistress, Chloe Sterling, disguised as a consulting fee. I believe you all saw her at the gala. She was the one who kicked me." The room was in chaos. Shareholders were shouting. "Lies!" Marcus roared from the stage. "She's unstable. She's hysterical. She's been poisoned by Arthur Vance." "Am I, Marcus?" Sakura said, stopping just at the foot of the stage. She looked up at him. "Am I unstable? Or was that just the story you were going to sell? Was Project Nightingale also going to cover the payments to Dr. Alistair Finch? Was it going to pay for the room at the psychiatric facility you'd booked for me after I gave birth?" Marcus went from red to ghost white. He had no idea she knew. That was the one part of the plan no one could have known. "Was that why you laughed, Marcus?" Sakura's voice was soft now, but it cut through the entire room. "When Chloe kicked me, was that you, laughing because your unstable wife narrative was writing itself? Were you laughing at the thought of stealing my child and my money and locking me away forever?" Marcus stared at her, his mouth opening and closing, no sound coming out. He was completely and totally exposed. He did the only thing a cornered animal could. He lunged. "You bitch!" he screamed, launching himself off the stage, his hands outstretched, aiming for Sakura's throat. He never made it. Arthur's security team, trained for this, intercepted him in a blur of motion. In seconds, Marcus Thorne, CEO, was on the floor of his own shareholders' meeting, his hands pinned behind his back. The two NYPD officers walked calmly forward, took control, and pulled him to his feet, cuffing his hands. "Marcus Thorne," one of the officers said, "you are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit false imprisonment." As they led him, sputtering and fighting, up the aisle, he locked eyes with Arthur Vance. Arthur just looked at him with bored contempt. Then Marcus looked at Sakura. She stood tall, one hand on her belly, her expression unreadable. She had won. Just as he reached the door, Chloe Sterling was brought in by two more officers. She had been detained at JFK, trying to board a one-way flight to Dubai. She saw Marcus, her face crumpled. "Marcus, you were supposed to protect me." Marcus just glared at her. "You ruined everything." The doors slammed shut, leaving the auditorium in stunned silence. Sakura Thorne turned to the board. "My apologies for the interruption. Now let's talk about restructuring this company." The air in the New York Hilton's main auditorium was thick with a toxic mix of fear and aggression. It was the annual Thorn Industries shareholders' meeting, and the room was packed. This wasn't the usual dry, procedural gathering. This was a bloodletting. On the gleaming stage, under lights that were far too hot, Marcus Thorn was visibly sweating. His $8,000 suit was impeccable, his silver tie knotted with precision, but a single bead of perspiration was tracing a path down his temple, the gala of shame, as the New York Post had gleefully branded it, was all anyone was talking about. His company's stock, THRN, had plummeted 28% in under a week. His investors were terrified, and the press, lined up against the back wall, were sharks who had tasted blood. And so, I want to personally assure our investors that the scurrilous, unfounded rumors circulating in the press are just that. Rumors. An unfortunate, sensationalized private matter. He attempted a confident smile, but it looked more like a grimace. My family is strong, he continued, his voice echoing with a false, booming authority. Our company is strong, and our third-quarter projections, despite these distractions, are a testament to our robust and synergistic, a sound, a deafening, definitive slam tore through his corporate buzzwords. The heavy oak double doors at the very back of the auditorium had been thrown open, crashing against their stoppers. Every one of the 500 heads in the room swiveled in unison. The light from the corridor beyond was blinding, silhouetting 3 figures. As they stepped forward into the auditorium's dimmer, corporate light, a wave of audible gasps rippled through the crowd. In the center was Sakura Thorn. This was not the trembling, weeping woman in the sapphire blue victim's dress from the gala. This was a queen in her war regalia. She wore a razor-sharp, custom-tailored black pantsuit, its severe lines somehow emphasizing rather than hiding the proud, firm curve of her pregnancy. Her hair, which she used to wear soft, was pulled back into a tight, severe chignon that exposed the fierce, elegant lines of her face. Her eyes were not downcast. They were aflame. On her right was Julian Adler, the most feared attorney in New York, his alligator skin briefcase held in one hand, his expression one of bored, lethal confidence. On her left was Arthur Vance, his white hair a crown, his posture radiating an ancient, immovable authority that made Marcus look like a petulant child. And flanking them, 2 paces behind, were 2 uniformed armed officers from the New York Police Department. Marcus's words died in his throat. His mouth hung open, his face a grotesque mask of white-hot panic. He looked from Sakura to Arthur, and then to the police, his mind racing, failing to compute. "Sakura," he choked out, his voice a squeak over the powerful microphone. What is the meaning of this? This is a private meeting. Security," he bellowed, his voice cracking. "Security, remove these people immediately. They are trespassing." 2 of the hotel's security guards started to move from the side aisle, but they were stopped by a single, cultured voice from the front row. "They will stay." A woman stood up. It was Eleanor Hayes, the matriarch of the board and the controller of the largest single block of shares. Her steel-grey hair was in a perfect coif, and her eyes, magnified by her designer glasses, were chips of ice. "They are here at my invitation," Eleanor announced, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Mr. Thorn was just giving us his projections. I believe Mrs. Thorn has a counter-presentation, one regarding the company's rather creative accounting. The floor is yours, Sakura." It was a coup, a public, brutal, corporate execution. Sakura took her first step down the long central aisle. The click, click, click of her heels on the parquet floor was the only sound in the vast room. It was not a walk. It was a procession. The press, recovering from their shock, went into a frenzy. Flashbulbs erupted, turning the scene into a flickering, high-contrast nightmare. The shareholders on either side of her didn't just move out of her way, they physically recoiled, as if from a source of intense heat. She didn't stop until she was at the very foot of the stage, standing on the floor, forcing her husband to physically look down on her. It was the last moment of superiority he would ever have, and she was turning it into a mockery. Julian Adler stepped forward and handed her a wireless microphone, which she took with a steady hand. She switched it on. The soft pop of the live mic silenced the last whisper. "Good morning, everyone," Sakura's voice rang out, clear, cold, and amplified. It held not a single tremor of fear. "My name is Sakura Thorne. My husband was just talking about strong projections. I'm here to talk about Project Nightingale." As she spoke the words, the massive presentation screen behind Marcus, which had displayed his robust synergy slide, flickered. A new image appeared, the scanned, high-definition first page of his secret ledger. Marcus's knees visibly buckled. "Turn that off! Turn it off now!" he shrieked at the AV booth, but the technicians just stared, frozen. Julian Adler's team had taken control of the system. "My husband, the CEO you've entrusted with your money," Sakura continued, her voice a merciless cadence, "has been very, very busy. For the past 18 months, he has been covering millions of dollars in catastrophic trading losses by embezzling." A roar of outrage rose from the crowd. And who was he embezzling from? Sakura let the question hang, her eyes locked on Marcus's. Not the company, not directly. That would be too obvious. He was embezzling from me, specifically from a $30 million private trust my father left me. A trust he accessed with a fraudulent power of attorney. He slipped into our prenuptial agreement. The room was in chaos. Shareholders were on their feet, shouting, "Fraud! Thief! He used this stolen money! My money!" Sakura raised her voice, cutting through the din, to illegally inflate this company's value, to lie to you about your earnings, to save his own skin. She paused, letting the shareholders process that their money was only safe because her money had been stolen. "But not all of it went into the company, did it, Marcus?" she purred, taking a step closer to the stage. "Where did the rest go?" The slide changed. It was a wire transfer, a single payment of 2,000 Los Galos to a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands. $2 million, Sakura announced, paid to an LLC named Sterling Acquisitions, an LLC whose sole proprietor is Miss Chloe Sterling. The name hit the room like a physical blow. "Yes, that Chloe Sterling," Sakura confirmed, her voice dripping with ice. "I believe you all saw her at the gala. She was the one who kicked me, his pregnant wife, to the floor. My husband was paying his mistress in diamonds and penthouse apartments with my inheritance. This was the final straw. The moral depravity, combined with the financial crime, was too much." The room exploded. "Lies!" Marcus finally roared, finding his voice. He was backed into a corner, his face purple with rage. "Slander! She's unstable! She's hysterical!" He turned his appeal to the board, to the investors he had charmed for years. "You can't believe this. She's a scorned woman. She's pregnant. Hormonal. She doesn't know what she's saying." He pointed a shaking finger at Arthur Vance, who was watching the proceedings with the calm disinterest of a man watching an insect die. "This is him!" Marcus screamed. "This is Arthur Vance, our rival. He has poisoned her mind. This isn't an audit. This is a hostile corporate takeover, and he's using my sick, unbalanced wife to do it. Tell them, Sakura. Tell them how he's been keeping you. Tell them how he's manipulated you." He was panting, his eyes wild. He thought he had found a narrative. The frail, pregnant woman brainwashed by a corporate shark. Sakura waited patiently for his tirade to finish. The room, once again, fell silent, the investors caught between two competing, terrifying narratives. "Am I unstable, Marcus?" Sakura's voice dropped, becoming dangerously, terrifyingly quiet. It was the voice of the executioner. "Am I sick?" She looked away from him, addressing the crowd again. "He's right about one thing. He did have a plan for my instability. It was the rest of Project Nightingale." The slide changed again. This time, it wasn't a ledger. It was a series of invoices, one from a private, high-security psychiatric facility upstate, the other an itemized retainer from a man named Dr. Alistair Finch. "Was that the story you were going to sell, Marcus?" Sakura said, her voice shaking now. Not with fear, but with pure, distilled rage. Was Project Nightingale also going to cover the payments to Dr. Finch? A man who lost his medical license in 3 states for falsifying diagnoses. She took another step, her hand resting on her stomach. "Tell them, Marcus. Tell them about the private room you had already booked for me, the one you intended to check me into the week after I gave birth. Tell them how you were going to use Dr. Finch to have me declared mentally incompetent with severe postpartum psychosis. Tell them how you planned to institutionalize me." The room was so quiet, the air itself seemed to have been sucked out. The shareholders, the press, even the police. They were paralyzed. This went beyond white-collar crime. This was evil. "Was that why you laughed, Marcus?" Sakura whispered, the microphone catching the terrible intimacy of the question. "When Chloe kicked me, and I fell. Was that you, laughing because your unstable wife narrative was writing itself? Were you laughing at the thought of stealing my child, stealing my money and locking me in a padded room forever?" Marcus Thorne stared at her. His face had gone from purple to a waxy, translucent white. He wasn't just caught. He wasn't just ruined. He was known. Every dark, secret, sociopathic corner of his soul was laid bare, projected onto a 40-foot screen for the entire world to see. He did the only thing a cornered animal could do. He broke. "You bitch!" His roar was primal. He launched himself off the stage. His mind snapped, his one and only impulse to silence her, to get his hands on her throat. He didn't even see the men moving. He never made it. Arthur's security team, trained for this exact brand of entitled, violent man losing control, intercepted him in a blur of grey suits. They didn't tackle him, they enveloped him. In seconds, Marcus Thorne, CEO, was on the floor of his own shareholders' meeting, on the corporate blue carpet, his face pressed into the fibers as he writhed and spat. "Get off me! Do you know who I am? I'll kill her! I'll kill you all!" The 2 NYPD officers walked calmly forward, their expressions bored. They took control of the situation, pulling Marcus to his feet by his arms. "Mr. Thorne," one of the officers said, his voice flat as he produced a pair of handcuffs. The soft click-click-click of the cuffs ratcheting shut was caught by Sakura's live microphone. "Marcus Thorne," the officer recited, "you are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit false imprisonment. You have the right to remain silent." As they began to drag the sputtering, weeping CEO up the aisle, the main auditorium doors opened again. 2 more officers entered, and between them, looking small and pathetic, was Chloe Sterling. She was wearing a rumpled tracksuit, her wrists also in cuffs. She'd been apprehended at JFK, trying to board a one-way flight to Dubai. Her eyes, wide and terrified, found Marcus as he was being hauled out. "Marcus!" she shrieked, her voice a desperate wail. "Marcus, you promised. You said you'd protect me. Tell them." Marcus, his face a mask of primal hatred, stopped and looked at her. He had lost his company, his freedom, his wife, and his child, and he focused all of that venom on her. "You!" he spat, his voice a low hiss. "You stupid cow! You ruined everything!" The officers dragged them both out, one through the front, one through the back. The doors slammed shut. And there was silence. The press, the board, the investors, they just stared at Sakura. She stood for a long, silent beat, her hand still on her belly. She let out a single, shuddering breath. She looked to the front row, at Arthur. He didn't smile. He simply gave one, single, profound nod. "It is done. Seraphina's daughter is safe." Sakura Thorne turned, not to the empty stage, but to Eleanor Hayes, who was still standing. Her voice, when it came, was no longer the voice of a victim or a warrior. It was the voice of a chairwoman. "My apologies for the interruption, Ms. Hayes," Sakura said, her voice perfectly level. "Now, as the majority stakeholder of my reclaimed trust, which, as it turns out, gives me a controlling interest in this company, let's talk about restructuring. What an incredible story of survival and karma. Sakura's journey shows us that the deepest betrayals can often be the catalyst for our greatest strength. She went from a silent victim in a gilded cage to a powerful voice for thousands, all because one person refused to stay silent. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the person you need to save you is yourself. And sometimes a little help from a guardian angel doesn't hurt. What part of this story shocked you the most? Was it Marcus's bone-chilling laugh, or the final dark twist of his Project Nightingale? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories where karma comes knocking, please hit that like button. It truly helps the channel. Share this video with someone else who needs to see that justice can and does prevail. And most importantly, if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring that notification bell. We have so many more stories of drama, revenge, and redemption coming your way. Thank you for listening.